Okay, good afternoon. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystems.com, and this is our Wednesday chart lesson. And I want to start out by giving you a big picture here of the overnight, including the overnight data. Want to show you exactly how I found my trend line. I always tell you guys I start off with my trend lines off the first two swings or so of the overnight session, and as you can see, we had a little trend line here off the top, and I already had this one drawn off the lower side. And I went ahead and marked the trades ahead of time. It just makes it a little easier. I want to try to speed these videos up, so you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that I've marked through. It's about it's a little bit before 2 o'clock. I'm going to try to do this a little earlier because it takes a little more time to prepare the video after I make it and upload it to YouTube. So I'm going to start trying to do these a little bit earlier when I get through trading and so forth. So, but anyway, here's a big picture. You can see I got my main trend line for the day by drawing it off the bottom two, first two swings of the overnight. Here you can see this gray line. That's the close and open from yesterday at 3:15. So there's my first two swings there, and there's my first two off the high side. You could have gotten a trend both ways. We kind of had a little what I call a triangle forming here, or a wedge type pattern forming here. And but as you can see, prices have reacted off this lower trend line a couple of times, and off the upper one a couple of times before the regular session opened. The regular session opened right in here, actually on a turn off of that high. And so you wouldn't have had this upper trend line. You would have at the open until after the open. So the main one I feel like was the one coming off the low. So, but because you wouldn't have had that one earlier, we probably wouldn't have drawn that one until after the open. But looking at this, I felt like this was our main trend line. We got a good clean move off those first two swings, and you can see the first couple of trades here. We got a couple of good trades off that line, and I'm gonna start out talking about trade number one here. But let's back out where we can see a little bit more of the action going on here. And the first trade of the day was this little small second entry. And a lot of times people say, well, how is that a second entry? And what you have to realize is this is a second entry off of a smaller time frame, because look, we really got a little double bottom here, and then we got to move up. Then this doji, we got to move down, and then another move back up. And if you went to a smaller pattern, you would clearly see a leg up, a pullback, and another leg up. And so that makes this a second entry short. But we got a couple of other reasons to take this short as well. First, we had this big bearish swing down, and we actually made a much lower low here than we did over here. So that gives this bearishness some, in price action rules, that's telling you that prices are getting, the sellers are getting stronger, the buyers are obviously getting weaker. And then we got how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 overlapping bars right here, and one of them's a doji. Actually, this could pass as a doji, so a couple of those are dojis. So this is congestion, and we got a break up out of that congestion, which was basically just a failed break higher and then a turn down. And so we really had a second entry short right below this doji. So that's where our entry point is, and the entry would have been 1231 and a quarter. And this moved down to 1228.50, and it actually got all the way as low as 28 and a quarter before it bounced and would have taken out any. Even then, it wouldn't have got your. It looks like it probably would have got your break-even stop on any runners. But again, 31 and a quarter, all the way down to 28 and a quarter. That's 3 points. So off the first trade today, you could have made yourself an easy 2 points, maybe even 3 points, depending on where you exited at. So that's trade one. Trade two here. Let's look at why we took trade two. First of all, we had the trend line coming up, and prices are stalled right here at this trend line. look what we've got here. We've got a little trap too. Prices came down, made a new low. They went higher, and then they turned lower again and ticked one tick lower. That is what I call a little double bottom trap. And notice how these two ticks both went a tick lower than this low over here. So you really had a double bottom from that bar to this bar, and it ticked lower, and it probably trapped some longs, and it turned back down, and it's probably stopped those longs out. If not, if it went another tick, definitely probably would have stopped a bunch of them out. But it tried to go twice lower there, right at the trend line, and failed both times and then turned up. So we got a little trap here. We've got two tries to go lower below a double bottom that both failed. So when this bar ticked lower and then reversed, we could have already had our order sitting right above this bar, but since it didn't get above it ahead of time, it would still be okay to leave it above this one, and that's where we got filled. We got filled on this trade at 12.29, and this trade went all the way to, let's see here, 12. Yeah, you probably, this trade went all the way to 12.30 3/4 before it backed up a little bit, but that probably was not enough to take out your break-even stops. So you really had runners going off of this first entry down here, or second entry of the day, and those runners would have been worth from 12.29, depending on where you exited. If you exited off this trend line that was coming down, because you could have had that after this first swing right at the open this morning. But even if you exited up here off this double top, which probably wouldn't have been a bad place to exit, that's 32 1/4 from 29. That's about a 3-point move, so you got 3 points out of that trade. And if you wanted to be aggressive and hang on there, since prices are still above this trend line, you could have ridden this as high as looks like almost 12.39 for the day. So from 29 to 30, that's a 10-point move, which that's nothing to sneeze at. But anyway, that's trade 2. Let's look at trade 3. This is a classic two-legged pullback to the trend line or EMA. First of all, that's our first reason. Look, we had our double top here. We pulled back. We broke higher on this bar right here. That's your first entry long. Then we went down. We made our second entry, and then we broke. Then we got a little reversal type bar. It's an inside bar, but it's all green. And there's a failed little break lower below all these matching bars here. And then, so when prices reversed above that, that's where we would have gotten long. And that's a second entry long off a two-legged pullback to the trend line. And you probably could have even adjusted your trend line after this swing. And look at there what you would have seen. That would have been a perfect bounce off that trend line. So that's another reason to like this long right here. And again, we've got the failed break below all the matching lows there. So we probably trapped that big bearish bar there. Likely trapped a lot of shorts, thinking that this was going to be the trend line for the day. There's plenty of room to scalp out there before getting back to that trend line. And you can see it did hesitate. Once it went above it, it pulled back and tested it, just like it always does. That gives you an idea you had your trend line drawn properly before it went on. But this was an fairly easy entry to find because it's right off the trend line. The entry point was 12.30.50. Any runners would have been good, and you could have easily gotten out on this one at 12.38.50 or so. You got 3 different attempts to try to get out there, and so from 12.30 to 12.38, that's an 8-point move on any runners, and it was pretty much straight up. So even if you would have just been waiting for a big bearish reversal bar to exit, you could have been out at 36, basically 37 at the worst or so. Worst case scenario. I'm still struggling with this cough a little bit, so bear with me here. But we had 3 nice trades right out of the gate this morning. And again, hopefully you can see that nice little two-legged move there, making that a second entry long. And let me show you something again. I've been trying to show you these little measured moves. There's the first leg down. And then you take that leg over here and look, that's almost a perfect measured move on those 2 moves. And there's your little pullback in between the 2 legs. So watch for these 2 legs. And that's what it looked like. We got, once we made this new high, it got really choppy. You could have really probably shorted off any of these highs up here. But you could have expected that, because if you look out, we had this double top over here earlier during the overnight. And if you'd have had your stuff, your resistance line drawn there, you would have seen that prices were struggling to go above 1238.75, but the reason they were struggling to come back lower again is because this was resistance that had now turned into support. But it was not, the buying was not strong enough to take it higher, so we were kind of stuck in this range. And so you could have actually used this range here, and you could have sold these highs, and you could have bought these lows, but there's not a lot of room in there. 36 and a quarter to 38.75, just a couple of 3 points in there at the most, so I didn't really like that. But our fourth entry was right here, and look what we've got here. We've got another two-legged pullback to the EMA, making this a second entry short. And yeah, this one, a lot of people say, well, yeah, but it made a new low there, so the count starts over. That's true. But you got to remember, I talk about this a lot, but people seem to miss it, is that there's no perfection in the markets. Close is close enough. So if you get a second entry short or two legs back to the EMA, just because this one ticked a little bit lower here, depending on the overall setup, you can overlook that sometimes. Now, if prices were stuck up in here in this, no way I'd overlook that. But down here, after a nice move down, and we've actually got a trend line coming down through here that I didn't put the trend line on. Actually, you probably could have had your trend line drawn just like that to begin with, and off your first two swings up there. And look, that was just a little failed break above that trend line. So you could expect prices to try to go lower and make a new low here, and that's exactly what happened. And so this is still a second entry short, because the markets are not perfect, and even though it ticked a tick lower here, that's not enough to really change the pattern. So close is close. If it looks and acts like a two-legged pullback, you're probably going to get the same results of a two-legged pullback. So keep that in mind. And but anyway, there's your entry right there. The entry point would be one tick below that big bearish reversal type bar. Your entry would be 1234. This one all the way to 32 and a quarter, so another easy scalp. You might have got 2 points out of this if you were 34 to 32. You wouldn't have gotten 2 points, but you could have gotten over 5 or 6 ticks out of this if you were paying attention. But likely you probably got your scalp, and then prices, prices bounced and took out your break-even stop. So. But also, there's another thing I liked here too. Just not only was it a second entry short on two legs back to the EMA and the trend line, we had these overlapping bars again here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. About 6 overlapping bars. A couple of them are dojis in there, and we broke up out of that. So that's also a failed break out of that congestion, which is likely to reverse. And look what happened. It did. You got another second entry short right here. It's a two-legged move, but look at all those overlapping bars. That's not a real good setup. You probably would have still gotten 4 ticks out of that, but look how prices reversed there. And but look at this. By being patient and waiting, we got a better setup up here to go short. And look what this is. You got one leg up, and you got this red bar in there. Or doji in here that pulled back. There's your pullback, and then your second leg up. It reversed. It broke up here back above this resistance area. It broke above this kind of double top right here. See these two matching highs? That's a double top. And it's all stem up there. So that's just a big trap, and that's 2 legs. Let me show you how these are probably pretty close to being the same length. There's the first leg. And then there's the second leg. They're the exact same length to the tick, basically. So that's a 2-legged pullback again. And we would have gone short here. And did we know it was going to fall out of bed like that? No, we didn't. We figured, you figure it's probably going to at least come back to this trend line and test it before going higher. But it couldn't really get any muster up any strength to the upside. It was just a big sell-off. And this was probably the trade of the day so far. Your entry would have been 34.75, and that fell straight down to 24 and a quarter. So that's about 10 points on a very simple trade that had really no pullback. Now, here's you something else to look at. Remember, I'm always talking about look for these two legs. There's your first leg down. And I bet you this other one is about a measured move. And look at there, lo and behold, it's, even though you got a little stem down here, as far as the actual closing price, it's almost a perfect move. So there's your two legs down. One, pullback, boom, two. And this was actually a second entry in here. This is a breakout pullback short, and it's also a second entry. But look, there's one leg back, pull back, then two legs back. It made a double top right there, and then boom, off we race as we go for the second leg. So that was not a bad setup right there. I didn't like it because of all those overlapping bars, but look, I missed a good trade. But I would rather miss a good trade than enter in a bad spot knowing what normally happens and getting trapped than watching this thing go higher. So anyway, let's move on to the next trade. We're starting to run out of time here. This is just another two-legged pullback to the EMA and the trend line. Your trend line still seems to be holding prices. Everything's still mostly coming off the EMA. But look, here's your low. There's one move back. Prices try to go lower. There's your first entry right below that point, right there at 12.26 was your first entry. Then prices pull back again. And then right here when they broke below 12.26.50, that was your second entry short. And that's a two-legged pullback to the EMA. We did have some overlapping bars there, but here's what the reason I still like that trade is because you had your pullback right here, and then you had a inside bar, and prices broke higher. That's two tries to go above that EMA, to go above that trend line that failed, and then prices reversed. So that's a trap type pattern, and the fact that prices didn't rocket lower here means there probably were not a lot of trap traders. Most of the shorts didn't, or the longs didn't give up until prices broke lower right here, and they probably hit a lot of stops right there, and that drove it on down. But usually when you got a trap, you'll get a big move that looks like that right there, or like this right here over here going up. So that's usually your that seeing those kind of moves will show you proof that there was probably a trap, because that's what happens on traps. Prices rocket down. And that's what happened here. I'm sure there were a lot of longs that got trapped right here thinking that prices were going higher. And you can see that fact by how prices sold off so hard and so fast. They were all running they realized they were trapped, and they were all running for the door when prices turned down. But anyway, this entry here off this second entry, two-legged pullback, was 26 and a quarter, and prices went all the way to 22 and a quarter. That's 4 points. So even if you only got 2 or 3, you had a nice profit there on another trade. And I'm going to do one more, and then we're going to call it a day today. And this is, again, another second entry short. You could have actually taken this one and gone short right below the doji right there. But that was an inside bar and a doji, so a couple of overlapping bars. But it probably would have been okay because we had this little double top here, and then we had another top matching over here. And this was a failed break above what's really a double top here. That probably trapped some longs, and then the fact that we were coming off this strong support area down here probably had trapped some, it sucked in a lot of longs on the wrong side too. But we've really got prices. You got your new low here. That's count zero. Prices are pulling up, and there's the first bar that broke lower right there. Can you see that? There's a red bar. Prices broke lower. So that's your first entry short. And then prices headed higher. We stalled here a little bit. But look, all those bars are matching lows. The second entry never triggered. There was never a break below another bar. And then prices shot on up and made the second leg and then turned lower. And again, you could have gone short below the doji. It would have been okay. But I usually like to see a trend bar in my direction if the setup's not real clear. And because you had these couple of swings in here, this one was not real clear. So I felt it was better to wait for this red bar. As you can see, the entry would have been 27, and prices came all the way down here to 22.25. So that's another 4-point move or so, 4 or 5 point move. And it only takes one good move like this trade or this trade or this trade or this trade to make plenty of money for the day. If you can make 2 or 3 points a day, actually if you can make 1 point a day, and you can do that every day consistently, all you have to be able to do to make big money is to be able to multiply your contracts. And so you don't want to get ahead of yourself doing that, but because it does affect you psychologically, and that's one of the problems with trading. Trading itself is not really that hard. It's the psychological part of it that makes it so hard. So don't over leverage yourself too early. Start out trading 1 or 2 contracts, and then when you probably tripled or quadrupled your account, then go to trading 2, and do it in very slow steps, and wait till you double or quadruple that account before you go to 3. You may feel like you've got a whole lot more money, and you may feel like you're spinning your wheels, but you don't want to jump up there and double your account and then start trading 4 or 5 contracts and then give it all back on a few losers. So learn to pace yourself and to not be greedy and to take what the market will give you. And but anyway, this is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystems.com. This is our wrap up of our Wednesday chart lesson. Hope these videos are helping you to see things a lot easier. We can't quite cover as many trades, but hopefully this using this format will help you and help you to learn quicker, in other words. So thanks for listening today, and we will see you tomorrow.